Okay. Just having a look here. Stop recording. And hello. Hi, this is Kathy Frey here from IMCO, from the International Integrated Fertility Healthcare Organisation. And welcome along to this week's webinar where we have got the wonderful Teresa Robertson. Say hello.
Hi there.
And for those of you who may have been live with us last week, this is a postponement of last week's, and because we had some technical issues, but we are really rapt to have everything all going to plan this week. And it's wonderful to have Teresa back with us this week as well, back with us again on this platform. And we've got a very interesting topic this week, which is stop trying to get pregnant. And so that's going to be a really interesting one to go through. But just a little bit of housekeeping. So it would be great for you to sign on in and let us know whereabouts you are in the world. So feel free to add into the chat section and let us know whereabouts you are. And I'm just going to just have a little look. So Teresa, just to give you a little bit of an overview. So since 1996, Teresa has been empowering her clients nationally and internationally, supporting them in connecting and communicating with their spirit baby. Teresa's diverse education, experience and training as a master's prepared certified nurse midwife and as an intuitive counsellor, enables her to serve as a translator and coach between the worlds of intuition and Western allopathic medical approaches. As the innovator of birth intuitive counselling, Teresa is uniquely qualified to guide women in connecting with their spirit baby, an unborn child, from preconception to labour, birth and beyond. Teresa's work has aided clients to promote fertility, to heal and to resolve pregnancy losses such as miscarriage and abortion, and to heal and or to minimise pregnancy complications and to assist adoptive parents in connecting with their unborn children too. And Teresa lives in a little old mining town, 18 miles and 3,000 feet above Boulder, Colorado, with her beloved husband and her two black dogs. And we were just discussing her house, which is first part of it built in 1910. So awesome log cabin. But yeah, so what we're going to be doing today is having a general chat. And if there's any questions that you have at the end, feel free to type them in and we'll absolutely make sure that we get those covered off. So just go into the Q&A section. So right, welcome. And Teresa, do you want to just give a little bit of an overview of your backstory to start with, you know, how you ended up doing, working in this topic that is your obvious specialty and passion?
Great. Yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm trained as a certified nurse midwife. I've been a certified nurse midwife for 30 years. I started going to births back in my late teens. I knew I wanted to be a nurse midwife. I was in nursing school, in nursing college, and got really involved in, I used to go to Lamaze classes and then go to births with people. And then I ended up in my mid-20s at a holistic healing center called the Omega Institute, and I was their first nurse. And so along the way, I picked up a lot of little tools in my tool bag. And around that time, I got introduced to APA, so the Perinatal Psychology Association. Mm-hmm. So what I offer anybody that works with me, and predominantly I work with women or women in families, is that whole conglomeration of everything. So that, that allopathic left brain training, that deep understanding of how the body works. In the mid 90s, I acquired some intuition. I went to training around the intuition. So we have the mind, body, and spirit, sort of put everything together. So when I'm working with someone, I'm looking, the big thing I want to understand, because I believe all behavior is meaningful, is I really want to understand someone's root cause, like really not what your diagnosis is, but what really is below that, right? So why do you have hypothyroidism, or why do you keep miscarrying, right? So along the way, for the past 20 years, 22 years, I've done a lot of work around preconception, fertility promotion, and a lot with women and families that have had recurrent pregnancy loss. So using that mind-body lens, that also that ability as a provider to understand what lab tests, how to talk to your provider, what you ask your provider for, maybe a different way of looking at those lab tests, story that those lab tests are telling you, and then doing some mind-body journaling, belief work with people. That comes from the work with the perinatal psychology, and then the connection with the spirit baby. So all that happens, believe it or not, in an initial first session.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I mean, because as you say, that sort of subheading on the topic today is, you know, creating the space for your unborn child to promote your fertility. You know, because everything to do with the maternity journey is a mind, body, spirit, or it's that triadic journey from conceiving a baby to birthing a baby and everything in between, isn't it? So I think that the fact that you've got that intuitive healing or intuitive counseling knowledge, combined with the fact that you are a clinically, you know, you're a clinician, and you know, you're a medically trained certified midwife, and what a great combination.
Absolutely. And the thing that I like to do, so I'm like, when people work with me, it's a little different than when they may work with other intuitive counselors, is that, yeah, I could sit down and start shooting off what I'm thinking's going on with somebody, but once that session ends, I'm not going to be with them, right? So it's really important to me that we work together to do some grounding, some exercises, and to start teaching whoever I'm working with to connect with their intuition, and then also to connect with that unborn child. Because I'm not there 24/7, but they are. So how do they start the conversation? How do they understand the information they're getting? And how do they build upon that is really the crux of what I love to share with clients. Both like if you work, yeah.
As I say, what do you find are the commonest, you know, what, I mean, we've had infertility experts on these webinars a few times, and like statistically, when you're looking at from a physiological perspective, I think sort of the approximate stats are that 40% of couple infertility is male related, 40% is female related, 20% is both, and 10% is both, and 10% is sort of unknown. But that's only looking, you know, at the physical side of it. When you look at your clientele, what would you say is the commonest holistic, or, you know, looking at the whole picture thing, what's the commonest causes that you find are contributing to those physiological manifestations?
Well, a lot of time too, I think I sort of specialized in the people with the unknown diagnosis. I love those because that's where, you know, it really is an unknown. Because if you dig a little deeper looking at, sometimes they really have a thyroid disorder or an autoimmune disorder, or, you know, they're maybe not being honest about that sperm could actually look better. Or there are some really strong beliefs that are getting in the way, right? So I really love looking at the unexplained part of it.
Often with couples where it is unexplained infertility, those are the ones that start to seek outside the square, because inside the sphere is not solving their issue. So that's probably attracting them to you as well, which is great.
Right. That's a really great assessment. Yeah, because otherwise they feel like, oh, we can fix this, right?
Yeah.
And I think the biggest obstacle, there's a couple of obstacles to fertility going forward. I think the speed of our life. I think we live in an increasingly more toxic environment, and that people think that they can just sort of plan or maybe fit in a pregnancy, like they have control over that. And so, first of all, I don't like schedule it, right? I've seen some people do that, like school teachers or people that work for universities. I'm always amazed when that works. But I always invite people to, first of all, I don't like to use the word infertility. I like to use the term fertility promotion. I really would love for individuals to think about having that child, having that year to prepare for men and women to get ready to expand your family, right? So,
yeah.
Right, it's on all levels.
Yeah, the more that we investigate that from a science perspective as well, the more that we realize that makes so much sense.
Oh, you save a lot. I think you would save a lot of time, money, and heartache.
Yes.
Especially for for women who have been on hormonal contraception. You need a good I would say you need a good 6 months, get some acupuncture, get some really good supplements going, because your body's been in this mode for many years saying, I don't want you to get pregnant. So your brain may say, okay, I want to get pregnant, but hormonally that whole process has been rewired. So working with that piece. I also think it's really important too. When we are on hormonal contraception, there's a lot of micronutrients that we become deficient in. And then there's more and more and more and more and more information coming out all the time about the sperm, right? We always like to blame the egg, but the sperm is really, really important. And I think it's just as important to look at the sperm pretty early in the journey. And because Susan, we talked about becoming pregnant is having more than enough of me to make you, right? So you're not going to make a third person if your vitality is not optimal, if your nutritional status isn't optimal, right? If everyone's just getting by, exhausted all the time, that's not going to make an optimal sperm or an optimal egg to come together and make a really healthy embryo.
I do like your little saying there that you need more than enough.
Well, that's Susan Weed. I can't take credit for that one, but I use that a lot. Yes, that's an herbalist out in New York. So yeah, it's about each of our vitality. And then I also think it's really important that year, I like to say before you start trying, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't want you to be trying, but before you really think, you want to be opening up your family and expanding your family, that's the great time to do things like cleanses, really looking at your intake of what's really toxic in your environment, the air, the water, what's going on with your diet, what's your substance intake, what medications are either of you on that maybe you can get weaned off of. Especially here in the US, a lot of people are on a lot of medications, and sometimes they were put on them 10 years before and they don't necessarily need them anymore. Or maybe they do need some support with an antidepressant, but that may be the one that they're on, or the anti-anxiety drug isn't optimal for fertility. So it gives you that time to look at, okay, what can be shifted? How can we grow? I also think it's a great time for whoever's creating that family to look at what their resources are. I'm not just talking about financial. I'm talking about the village, right? So we've all seen that with COVID this year, it's really, really, really been hard for new families, right? There isn't I mean, I have a neighbor across the street. She has a 9-month-old baby, and we stand outside and talk a lot. It's been really good, but that's minimal amount of support I probably would have been offering that neighbor because of COVID, right? It's those like, let me go hang out with him while you go do this or that. That can't happen, right? So it's been really, really, really challenging for families during COVID. But I'm just looking at those resources. Yes, it's financial. How what's going on with insurance and all that, but also who's going to be there when you're sick and the baby's sick? Who's going to come in and bring in that food and maybe clean the house or have the extra pair of arms? Like, who's your tribe, right? Where really are your resources? And then I think it's also a really great time for first-time parents to look at, what are your beliefs around parenting? What do you need for support around that? What are some places you're going to stop hanging out, and maybe where can you find a new community that can support how you want to raise this child?
Yeah. It's such a good point. And there's so often, I mean, well, they say about 50% of pregnancies are not planned. So they obviously don't have fertility issues. And, 50% are planned. And, but a lot of them take such a long time. And it's like saying, look, don't see that time as a waste time. This is a time that you've got to get all your ducks lined up in a row, and use that time for having optimal nutrition. And as we know, science is backing that. Right. We know that having that this is making a stronger egg and a stronger baby and stronger sperm, in the health benefits are magnificent. So why do you use the term fertility promotion and not infertility support and counseling? I mean, I think reversing it, isn't it, really?
I want to go back to one thing you said, and then I'll talk about why the terminology is real important.
Yeah.
So it's like, one of the big things I do with clients is, instead of them feeling like, because it's, you're being pregnant is a quantitative event. You're either pregnant or you're not, right? There's no qualitative part like, oh, this cycle you were 80%. You only can see that in retrospect. You're right, for a lot of people. And so looking at that time as a time of investment in yourself, in your relationship, in what you have for resources, right? And instead of it being that merry-go-round failure piece. Yeah. And it's really hard. I think also in our culture now, we're used to things happening really quickly. So 3 months can feel like a very long time, but it really, the average, we say a year, right? When you're a little older, we'll start thinking, okay, let's take a little better look here at 6 months. But, it could be up to a year, and that could be normal. That can, that's a really common experience. So I don't like the term infertility. I've stopped using a long time, even though it's probably the term that most people search for, because when you tell your body, when you hear that you're infertile, you're going to be infertile. And when you start telling your body that you may have some fertility challenges, okay, or that you work on your fertility promotion, even when I talk to clients, I go, how does it feel when you say those things? It feels different to somebody inside, right? Infertility just can mean I'm broken, something needs to be fixed, I'm failing, right? There's something wrong. Versus if you're working in fertility promotion, that's a proactive way of looking at that I'm improving my health, and creating space so that somebody can come and join and grow our family, right? I think it takes that success failure piece out of it. It makes it more of a journey.
Yeah, and which just comes down to why you're talking about stopping trying to get pregnant, using that sort of mentality. So how do you encourage women to focus their desire to become pregnant and stop thinking of
I
it
don't
as
think trying works, right? Most people go, oh, when we stopped trying, we got pregnant, right?
Yeah, and that is a really irritating comment. I mean, it's true, but it's also when you're in the middle of
yeah,
trying to get pregnant, and people go, "Oh, what you need to do is relax."
right,
You know, you just
right.
want to slap them, really.
Yeah, you really want to cut their head off. Yeah.
So
Because
what
we don't
are
know
those
how.
tools and focus that that you get them to do to help them in
Yeah,
this?
it's really hard because it does become, and then obviously it's really hard for a lot of clients too, because everyone around them starts getting pregnant, right? And then it becomes more of like, oh, what's wrong with me again? So try and put you into effort. That's more of a masculine. So we have a female and a male aspect, right? Our female aspect connected to the left side of our body, our right brain. The male aspects, the right side of our body, our left brain. The male aspects, the part that thinks and plans and executes and accomplishes. So we've got a whole generation now, because of our generation, my older generation, 2 generations of women that feel like their male aspect's really good, right? They can plan around anything, right? But getting pregnant is an act of being out of control, right? It's allowing, accepting, trusting. So when I'm working with individuals, those are the verbs we work with. Those are the actions we work with. And how can you get that level of validation with allowing, trusting, accepting, right? How do you cultivate that space? And also that's where they're cultivating their intuition, right? That part of knowing, a part of listening to their body instead of pushing through, because there's this myth that we just have to always push through. And our menstrual cycle has times in that menstrual cycle, well, yeah, that's the beginning when you got all the estrogen. Yeah, you want to go, 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 go. But that second half of the cycle, when we should be having more progesterone and it slows us down, we need to slow down. Because if we have conceived in that part of the cycle, we need to have a whole lot less cortisol. So if that little conceptuous can make its journey through the tube and do the implantation, right? We need to have as much rest, as much circulation, as much nourishment in that pelvic part of our body during that second half of the cycle, right? And so that's one way I support clients with understanding, listening to their body, of when to slow down or to stop, how to resting, getting massage, making love, those are activities. So you can validate those experiences. Right. And then I think by teaching individuals to connect with the spirit, their unborn child, then they're having an experience. And it's not just like I'm giving up everything. I'm starting to get an understanding of what I'm bringing in and what I'm inviting. And starting to have that feeling in their body. Yes.
Yeah. So when you say connecting to the spirit baby, which I totally understand, but we will perhaps have some viewers watching it live or later who might go, there's personally, as a midwife and as a woman, a human being, I do believe that our babies are predestined for us. I do believe that they choose us as parents, and I do believe that they choose their birth date as well, regardless of the circumstances. And I think that as a midwife, you'd probably be on the same page, that, when you've had years and years of midwifery, you just know, so often you've got women who may be getting post dates and they get really frustrated, and when's this baby coming, when's it coming, and you just know. I just say, look, the baby, the reason the baby isn't here yet is because it's not its birthday yet. It knows when it's coming, and then sure enough, often it will arrive, and look, it's exactly the same birthday as its great grandmother or something. There'll be some kind of link there along the way. And so when you say connecting, when you're not pregnant and someone's saying to you, you need to connect with your spirit baby, do you find much resistance on people sort of go, that's a bit crazy, like what you think, I've already got a baby allocated to me? Or do you find that women
Um,
are actually open to that because they like that?
well, I
Makes
mean, that's a lot of times why people come to me.
right.
So, but either, or that a lot of times it's very frustrating. People come to me because it's frustrating. Most of my clients have the feeling or the experience of knowing someone's around them. They could feel it. They've been pestered, you know.
Oh, we got goosebumps on that one.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and they're like, okay, so why aren't you here? Right? Why are you around? I can feel you. Why aren't you inside my body? So it's a lot of times while I will, that's sometimes what leads clients to me. And I think if you have asked anybody who's been pregnant and had a pregnancy loss, that's the thing that they, in my experience, that's the thing that there's something that was there and it's gone. And it's not just the pregnancy hormones. There's a energetic feeling of somebody else other than me, that goes when a woman has a miscarriage, right? A pregnancy loss. And that is it's just a knowing that they have. So I actually made a meditation for you to give to people, in the after email. Thank you for showing
Yes,
up
so
email. It will lead
those
someone
that
through
have
that process.
yeah, and so those that are registered to attend this webinar do get an automated email from Zoom sort of 24 hours later, where we're going to have some of these connections. But when we before we wind up today, Teresa, I will get you to just go over your contact details for people who might be watching this way further down the track. Yeah, so absolutely.
Yeah, no, be
Right.
happy to send it off to anybody later on if
Yeah.
the other link doesn't work. Yeah. Did I answer your question? I mean, I
Yeah,
think
I guess I suppose it's you're by the time you're seeing people, between the fact that they've usually gone through kind of a journey that leads up to them reaching out to you, they're already in, I guess, a little bit more of an open mind to the mind, body, spirit approach. Do you find?
Yes, but also thinking about when I was a full scope midwife. I mean, most women know there's somebody there, right? And they are connecting. It's just like this big secret that they don't have any validation for, like, they're like, yeah, I'm talking to the baby, but does it work? Right. And so that's the other place where, I love to connect. Yeah. So I guess to answer your question, that's part of what attracts people to my practice, because that is in the description of what I offer. Right. And I think a lot of clients that come to me are actually relieved to be able to talk about that aspect of becoming pregnant with somebody.
Yes, by the time they've got to you, they've probably had so many medical conversations with clinicians without it getting into that emotional, spiritual aspect.
Yeah. Sometimes I connect with people before too. That I love those, like the preconception fertility promotion. And those are really wonderful because there's not as much other heightened pieces to it. But yeah, I mean, it's like, because we're inviting this person to join your family. So it's important to know who they are, what they need, to come on in and stay.
Now, I know that you talk about valuing moving at the speed of being pregnant to support you becoming pregnant. You want to talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah. So it sounds, oh God, what's the word? I'll stop trying to think about the word and then it'll come. It's paradoxical, right? So these beings, a lot of times when we connect with them, they seem to be moving really quickly, right? They're like this different energy than we are. But for the act of them to need to come and land, we need to be a landing pad. We need to be in a grounded, slower moving space so that they can land. And also on the physiological aspect of it. cortisol. So that's the adrenaline hormone that most of us live off of, that's secreted by our adrenal glands, so on top of our kidneys. When our body's in a state of having all that cortisol, all that adrenaline all the time, the circulation goes to the organs in our body that are necessary for our survival. So our brain, our heart, our lungs, our kidneys, right? The other organs are not considered essential for survival. Your uterus is not considered essential for survival. So it's not going to get the quality of circulation to your uterus or your ovaries, your hormone. So the whole hormonal dance of ovulating, the pituitary talks to the adrenals. And if we've got a lot going on with the adrenals, that's telling the pituitary, now's not a good time to reproduce. Now's not a good time. So a lot,
you know, we've talked about this on these webinars before, where so often people are aware that, you know, when they are in that, you know, stressful, busy, fight, flight, fright, mode all the time, they do understand that that impacts digestion, you know, because you need to rest to digest.
Exactly. Yeah,
right?
That gets shut down too.
Yeah, but what people forget is that also, or just aren't aware of, that it also affects reproduction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
that's another, as you say, non-essential service becomes offline.
Right. And if it's not safe, if your body perceives you're not in a safe place, it's not smart to reproduce. So you asked earlier, how do I help people to stop trying? So I
those sort of tools and what you focus on, get them to focus on.
Right. So a lot of that goes with, okay, how does it feel? So when you said, yeah, just tell someone to relax. Well, how do you relax? Right. So I take it a step further, is like, I help with some guided work, help them understand how it feels in their system when their system is what we call downregulated, right? So there's not adrenaline running the show, but they're grounded, they're present, their body is moving at a slower rate. So that's the rate of pregnancy. When you're pregnant, you can't move very fast, right? First trimester is a huge lesson for that, right? Sluggo disease between the hormones, maybe the nausea, a lot of progesterone. You know, you may look like a normal person, everybody else, but inside you are just like, whoa, right? Because you're growing another whole body, another whole,
yeah, and you're
all the equipment of another body in there. Yeah,
you're growing a whole new organ as well.
Yeah.
You're growing the placenta. So there's so much going on.
Yeah, so it's a whole part of giving people concrete exercises. A lot of it just has to do with being aware of your breath. How does it feel when you're grounded? And when you're not grounded, have your body give you a signal to be like, okay, I need to do that, you know, little exercise that we did together. And then it's easier to connect with that being, right? But having enough circulation is really, really, really important, because we know when people have too much adrenaline, they have ovulatory dysregulation going on, right? And we want a lot of circulation in that uterus so you can build a really, really nice lush lining. And then when that embryo comes in to implant, it's nice and lush, and there's a lot of circulation there for that, right? And some of it's structural stuff, like not wearing high heels. People don't like to hear that. Wearing high heels moves what's going on in your pelvis, changes the circulation. So those kind of things, right? Making sure that structurally, if you've been in a car accident, making sure structurally everything's aligned in that pelvis, so there's really good circulation and nutrients. So the more circulation and nutrients, the healthier, you know, egg you're going to grow. Yeah. So that's on the female aspect. And then I think on the male aspect is for them to understand too, that they're just not if the couple is a husband, wife, male, female, or sometimes families there's a lot of different ways we make families now, right? So whatever the gender of the person who is helping to create this family is, it's really important that they have a way of being connected to. So connecting with that baby helps them also to be part of that experience, because the woman who's gestating the baby, that's an internal experience, but there's still so much that can happen between the person who, the mom could be a single mom or whoever else is her family, to connect with that baby and to start creating that whole circle of nourishment then.
So do you want to go through maybe, because most of our audience are maternity health practitioners, a lot of birth practitioners and naturopathic maternity therapists and whatnot. Probably most of these professionals are dealing with women who are already pregnant, but not everybody's dealing with the women who are pre-conception. But I guess, but we often find ourselves in situations where we're asked about that information. So if you were kind of to put it into like a bit of a summary, a nutshell, what would you say are the main things that women wanting to conceive should be doing that commonly aren't, or need to stop doing that commonly are? What's those main themes, I guess, that you're seeing all the time?
I don't like to should, but I think the biggest thing to invite someone to be aware of is rest. Rest is a nutrient. Sleep is a nutrient. And so if someone's not resting or sleeping enough, then they're, again, it's going back to Susan Weed, their body's not going to have the vitality to create the nutrients, to create the environment, to create the nest, to grow somebody else. Right. So I think that's really important. A lot of times I'll talk about a not to do list.
Because a lot of times women, tell us your not to do list.
Right. So we're socialized to make lists, right? And then to check them off. There's a lot with that. So what can be on your not to do list? And then that takes away some of that sense of guilt or responsibility. And then it's
so you're talking about them looking at all their things that they do and cross off and say, what are the things that I don't need to do?
You don't need to do any. Yeah, we're really, and they probably are going to fall away the moment you're pregnant. The reality of that is, right? And what's going to get added in? The need for naps, right? The need for
going back to that your behavior, you're living your life in a way as if you are pregnant. Like we're not sort of talking it mentally saying, oh, I am pregnant when you're not pregnant, but we're talking about just being in a activity level that is reflective of
not going a bazillion miles a minute. So for the ladies I worked with who are really, really busy, high power jobs, I love, my favorite function on the phone is probably the timer. So I would have them set a timer with a really nice tone, not something that's activating, maybe once an hour. So for 5 minutes where they get to, and then I say, just go to the bathroom, because that's a socialized place where we can have time to ourselves, right? If you're in a place where you're not in a high rise, it's 30 floors up, where you can just walk down a couple of flights of stairs and step outside for 2 minutes, that's good too, right? So it's finding those activities that help someone come back to center, to take some time to breathe. So, 5 minutes every hour, every 90 minutes. And then either just taking a time to do the grounding exercises, connecting exercises, the four square breathing thing is really good. Anything that helps.
That one to our listeners. Do explain that one to our listeners.
Oh, okay. I also teach nursing students. At the end of every class, I have them bring a resourcing activity. So that's what you can ask someone to do something that fills you up instead of depletes you, right? And it's not going for more caffeine or some more sugar. Maybe it's having a nutrition filled snack, right? Maybe it's putting your feet up. So the 4 and 4 out, it's just like breathing in for 4, holding for 4, breathing out for 4, holding for 4. And that resets our nervous system, the vagal nerve, and helps people to downregulate their nervous system, to shut down that cortisol, helps people to feel calm and in present time. I think having the notifications turned off on your phone, really, really, really helpful. Decreasing the amount of buzzers that's essentially a buzzer or notification. Anything that's going to prevent your body going into an alarm again, right? So simple things like that. And then reminding people take a nice deep breath, take 4 nice deep breaths. And then exhale. And when you're exhaling, releasing anything that feels really stressful at that moment, can also help reset what's going on. Because I think when we move in a tornado, we keep a tornado going. So what do people need for skills to get into the center of, and a lot of our lives are pretty hurricane-ish, tornado-ish, but if we can stay in the eye of that hurricane, that's going to help our body be downregulated. The other, I think, essential thing is having a connection to nature. Right? Yeah. Sitting on the earth if you can, sitting on rocks, listening to water, looking at the sky, looking at trees. That also helps our bodies to regulate and be connected. Because what we're doing inside of our bodies is part of nature. To conceive a baby, right? Absolutely. And to stay pregnant.
I don't usually always sort of put in personal stories into these webinars, but it's so relevant to what you're talking about. And 25 years ago or thereabouts, I was in the middle of a couple of years of infertility or failing to fall pregnant. And I was, I look at it now and you just go, oh yeah, of course you weren't falling pregnant. I mean, very high powered position, very, very busy career sort of lifestyle, breakfast meetings several times a week, after work functions several times a week, flying, every second or third week, and loving it, thinking, oh, I'm just so important and essential to the world. and this is, of course, before we knew as much as we know now, like courtesy of access to Google and the internet and Zooms and all of this. I mean, that wasn't all around. So I remember seeing a naturopath who I'd heard about that, and turned out this naturopath, medical herbalist, had a higher pregnancy success rate than the obstetric medical infertility clinics. And he just took one look at me and just said, well, of course you're not going to be pregnant. You're just way too busy. Mm-hmm. Your body can't fit this into your life.
Right. And then what would happen if you were pregnant? Where would you have? So that's part. Yeah. That's living at the speed of being pregnant.
Yeah. And so often when women, after they have become pregnant and have their babies, they end up dialing down their career, right? Because you have to, or your baby is fully looked after, but it's that, and I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong in this, it's just a practical thing. But so I dialed down my career beforehand. So that's basically, I left my job, I went into a way more lower paying, mundane, kind of less stressful situation. And that's when we became pregnant. But but now sort of looking at, we see this so often. It's like there's this expectation that as a woman, you should be able to see it all and do it all and be it all. And then we wonder why, 50% of us are having, 50-60% are having fertility problems. Like, why? Of course we are.
Yeah.
Was
it Gloria Steinem that said, I forget, but yes, we can do it all, but not all at one time. Right.
Yeah.
That's the myth, that you can do it all at one time. And then probably the other thing that goes with that, that women don't like to hear, but it's, you know, sometimes I actually live in, I think Boulder County is considered the thinnest county in the country, or used to be. So there's a fair amount of that where I go, you guys, you need to gain 10 pounds. So you can either do it having fun on your own, or you're going to get it with the fertility drugs, right? And you're going to need that 10 pounds. It's funny because I had a client last year email me back and said, thank God you told me that, because she had a really hard first trimester where she had trouble keeping anything down. So that extra 10, 15 pounds that she gained really served her then, right?
Yeah.
You just don't know where you're going to end up. But I mean, I think that's the other part of not having to be in control, allowing your body to be at an optimal weight for getting pregnant. So if you have a little extra weight on, so your BMI is not between 21 and 26, that's a good thing to get yourself in that range, because that's going to support you conceiving and having a healthier pregnancy.
You're so right. I mean, so often there's talk about the BMI, you know, the healthy BMI between, you know, 18 and 25. But I agree, 18, 19, 20 is it's too low for really supporting a pregnancy. And, you know, there's just, and when we think back that, you know, that there's not a lot that's changed in our bodies since cavemen days. And, you know, back then you needed those reserves so that, you know, when there's starvation involved, you've got the reserves for those babies. Of course, you have to have the reserves. Yeah. I'd agree with you. I think that
and fat creates estrogen,
21,
right?
26, 27. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even 21's a bit low. 22 to 27.
Yeah.
Better.
Yeah, I agree with that. And remembering that fat is endocrine, it's endocrine, it's part of your endocrine system. So fat creates estrogen. So that's part of your hormonal balance, your resourcing, your reserves. And
that creates the estrogen. And on top of that, when you are pregnant, one pregnancy will produce more estrogen than a non-pregnant woman will produce her entire life. So yeah, you need a lot of that reserve.
Yeah. And then so it's hard because our cultures have a certain idea of what it means to be fit and in control. And you know, I tend to work somewhat with that population of like, listen, you do not need to be charging up that mountain. You need to keep your body warm. You need to have a little extra fat. But starting to look at what will your life look like when you have a child, the extra time and space that those first 3 years require, and start setting up your lifestyle so that it looks like that now, so that when you have the baby, it's not a big shock, and then you end up with postpartum depression also, right? So it's
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a lot of just sort of allowing, accepting, trusting. And
so we need to wind up soon. So what would be, you know, your top tips? I guess if we're going to put it in the for the audience who is mostly maternity healthcare practitioners, and we do get asked, you know, about, even if we're not involved with fertility promotion, we get asked about it. So, you know, when you've got a woman that's saying to you, look, I'm just really struggling to fall pregnant, you know, what can you advise that I do or don't do? What would be your top tips to pass on?
So I guess I'll start with sort of on the physical level, right? I think that the biggest part, probably the biggest test that's misinterpreted for women for optimally becoming pregnant and staying pregnant is thyroid labs. And you know, women need the full thyroid panel, which includes thyroid antibodies, right? The TSH is like the big ocean liner. Doesn't really, it's just, you know, everyone goes, oh, your TSH is fine, you're fine. No, you need to understand how your body is breaking down those thyroid hormones, how much is really bioavailable. If someone has thyroid antibodies, you can have thyroid antibodies up to 7 years before you actually have thyroid disease. So that's really important to know, because that's going to speak to some autoimmune issues, perhaps, that, if someone's giving me a history of, sounds like they're making a connection. It sounds like they're conceiving, right? And 70% of conceptions don't make it to implantation. But it sounds like, yeah, I felt like I was pregnant and it was negative. Or I had a faintly, it was faintly positive, and then it went away. They like to call those a chemical pregnancy. So what I'm hearing in that is, okay, someone's conceiving. You really start to look at what's going on with autoimmune, what's going on with toxins, both for male and female. I think it's really important, based on the work of Ben Lynch, that everyone be on methylated folate. You don't need to test everyone from MTHFR, just assume everyone's got it. And MTHFR is an enzyme that prevents the ability for folic acid to become folate. So it affects about 40% of the population. Everyone just get the bioavailable methylfolate.
And it covers you whether you do or don't have the problems processing it. Yeah.
And then vitamin D is essential, that you want your vitamin D levels to be, between 40 and 60 NGs. Was it over 10,000 enzyme connections vitamin D is part of? I just know that that's a really important physical cofactor for people. Right. That women have to feel safe enough. I always ask clients, what do you guys need, or what do you need to feel safe enough for your life to blow up? Because having a baby is a bomb going off in your life. So what do you need, right? Because it's a roller coaster of never being in control. And so what else do you need in the outside of all that? So while you're going through that big cataclysmic journey, where else are the safe spots around you that can support you along the way for that? So let's see, those are the physical things, the mind body thing. Like we talked about the last time I do a perinatal survey, I'd like to understand what was the experience of both the people involved with making this, if there's two people involved with making a third person, what were the imprints in utero? Like, were those pregnancies planned? Were they unplanned? Did something cataclysmic happen during any of the pregnancies or the birth, right? Because that could be a big fear. Like if a baby died, and you heard that story a lot, that's a big no for putting yourself in the position, because that's stored in your system. So I really like to look at, okay, I ask people what's saying yes and what's saying no. I like to ask, when they're doing the journaling, I ask the same question a bunch of different ways, so that people can understand, what in their system really, of course you're here, your left brain wants to do this, but what else is afraid? What other part of you is afraid that's going to shut this down on both ends? And then helping people to understand how to be present, how to downregulate their system. And most people will not have an hour to meditate. So how do you teach people in really short segments of being aware of coming back into their body and helping themselves to get back, to downregulate that cortisol, and then connecting with the being, and listening.
Well, it's been so great having you back here again, and you're such a wealth of information, and it's just always, when you have those clinical skills combined with that holistic side of it, that is integrative medicine. That is exactly what we're talking about, and that's what we are promoting, is having those both, and what a difference it makes to have that input from both sides. And it's always interesting how our speakers came to specialize in the areas that they specialize in. It's been their journey as well. So look, before we wind up, do just go over your contact details for those who may be watching this
Sure.
much later down the track.
So website, birthintuitive.com will get you to livingintuitivecounseling.com. I'll end up with me. Teresa at livingintuitivecounseling.com. And then my US phone number is 303-258-3904. That's a cell, so you could text or call. I guess I should be better with the social media thing. I don't, I have a Twitter, but I haven't done much with it in a while. So, and I have a LinkedIn, but I generally, those are the ways. If you email me or text me, you get my attention, or call me, you get my attention. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, look, thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me. This was fun again.
And I'm glad we could wangle it. And because when last week we needed to postpone, I was thinking, oh my goodness, how are we going to fit you back in? Because there's not a lot of spaces between now and Christmas. And then this week's needed to postpone due to some unforeseen circumstances. So it was absolutely perfect. And we just go, wow, that was just meant to be.
Yeah, last week was a little frustrating.
Yeah. So, and
the least.
those, who are back here again this week, who held in there last week, and for a little while as we were trying to deal with that. So and when somebody's asked for the email, and Teresa, you've just put that in there. So yeah, Teresa at Living Intuitive Counseling, and the counseling spelled COUN.
Did I spell it wrong?
No, ING. No, not at
Okay.
all. It's just that
Okay.
I know that's one of those words that people do get confused on sometimes.
Oh,
Of how to
and
spell.
intuitive will trip you up too. So
Yeah. Actually, I think you have got a typo in it.
I probably did. I typed a little fast.
Oh, so it's living. Don't copy and paste it. Yeah, it's Living Intuitive Counseling.
Do it again.
Oh, okay. Somebody can't see the email. Oh, that's because you've put it to not to everyone. Hold on.
Oh, I'll put it to everyone. Good.
Just hold.
Oh, good.
Just hold the line, caller.
Is that better?
There we go.
Cool.
Everyone should be able to see that.
Wonderful.
So yeah, Teresa, that's Teresa, no H, at Living Intuitive Counseling, and counseling spelled COUNSELING.com. And yes, so that's wonderful. So look, thank you very much, everybody, for returning this week, and thank you, Teresa, for your time. And I just want to, here at IMCO, International Integrated Maternity Healthcare Organisation, we just want to wish everybody a lovely rest of this week, and thank you for being at this week's maternity healthcare, natural maternity healthcare webinar. So thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.